Tonight's topic is going to be sex and gender representation in visual media, i.e. TV and movies.
It's movie night.
And we even have popcorn, which is awesome. Thank you, Sarah, for bringing the popcorn. It's going to be great. So starting with, we're going to talk a lot about how representation in film has changed. And also how it's a really great kind of gateway or assistance in breaking down those social barriers to people who might otherwise have their walls up related to gender, sex, LGBT, women in general, and those different roles.
Yeah, I hate admitting it, but this is one my parents were actually right about. They were so afraid that if I were watching movies as a kid about like sex and about alternative lifestyles and about these different ways of being, that it would somehow open my eyes and pull me from the bosom of a loving God. And fuck.
Hey, look.
Actually, yeah, kind of. They were right. They were right. I think it is super important, actually, to, you know, I've talked about my deconversion story on the show before, and people can check that out. But for me, movies and film and these different types of representation were huge in building some empathy and, you know, getting me out of my head, out of my stupid bubble of, you know, what the Lord shath say about who people shouldeth be.
That was
well said.
terrible.
Very well said.
Okay.
So, yeah, it helps to open that door. And I know I personally can say, you know, with me as well, that I wasn't necessarily raised in the most, thank you, Mom, for being the one person in our life who said there were different people and that didn't make them bad. It just made them different. But everyone else in my life said, you know, it was bad and different was wrong and everything. But then, you know, also seeing the movies and the TV shows where you had the different representations and, you know, being able, like you said, to empathize with the characters on the screen and say, oh, maybe that person, you know, or someone like them that actually exists 1,000 miles away is okay.
Is a human being.
Yeah,
not just an idiot who's making bad choices.
Right.
You know, or when you start looking at things like the AIDS epidemic and these other issues that we'll talk about, you start to realize that if that was a choice,
well,
Jesus.
And not just a one-dimensional factoid, right, about who or what they are.
Being gay isn't just about hairdressing.
Right. You know, they are all people, and it's just one facet of who they are. And yeah, maybe it's not a choice. Maybe it's just biology.
Yeah. Growing up in the 70s and 80s in a rather sheltered town, there's so much I just never knew about and would never have known about if not for media, because it just wasn't present in my life because it was so sheltered, you know? And so I learned so many things that I should have learned from basic life, you know, because it was before the internet and all, from the movies and the shows on cable that I would watch at night. Yes, we'll get to that later.
Did it help you at all in feeling not alone in seeing some of the representations, or did the representations maybe hurt a little?
A little bit of column A, a little column B, because, you know, the early representations of stuff like trans stuff, especially, and even just like lesbian representation was there a little bit around the edges and you could find it, but then when you found it, it was also kind of, you know, it was pretty problematic. Yeah, it was really highly sexualized. A lot of times it was sort of demonized.
For the man's pleasure.
Yeah, definitely for the man's pleasure. You know, queer-coded villains and stuff, you know, basically there to tell you that queer people are bad inherently. And it's just so subtle that you don't even realize they're doing it. You're just like, ooh, hey.
Yeah, I mean, look at
they're bad.
Any vampire movie pre like 2000, you know, and you get these like very queer, you know, just
as part of being what's wrong with them.
Right, absolutely. You're connecting those two things over and over and over again.